Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scrapbook Garage YouTube channel. It is Tuesday at 2 and we're here for another live creative session with you all. If you're finding us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you that have joined us before, welcome back. I hope you had a great week. We are going to make a few quick and easy Christmas cards today. So I thought it would be fun to put together some silhouette cards. We have some new stamps in the store, so that's kind of fun. And yeah, I thought it would be fun to create a couple cards along with you. We're going to be using some ink blending techniques and some silhouette stamps today, so that will be very fun. If you get a chance, join us on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page called the Scrapbook Garage Creative Community. You're welcome to join us there. And if you do create any of the techniques or tips you learned today or watched today, please share your project. We'd love to see what you're creating. Okay? If you're in the chat, join us. Please post and say hello. It'd be great to see you and know that you're there. On my end, I can't see anything unless someone pops in and says hello. So please join us, say hello, let us know you're here, and we're going to jump right in. I'm going to switch to my overhead cam and I'll show you what we're going to make today. So there we go. So there's a couple of Christmas cards for you today. So we're going to be creating with some ink blending techniques, super easy, quick and easy. These will work fantastic to put together some last minute Christmas cards. So we have one that's about 5.5 by 5.5. We have another one here that is a regular A2 card. So I'll show you how to add the snow to the trees. We're going to be working with one stamp set today that is available in the Scrapbook Garage store, online store. And it is, I'll show you the stamp set here. This is created with this stamp set here. It's by Lecree Creative BV. They're out of the Netherlands, and they have some really wonderful stamps and dies. We have many of them in the store. So yeah, but if you're interested, let me see if I can pop a link into the chat here. I'll copy and I'll paste that into the chat for anyone that might be looking for them. There you go. So we're going to be using that stamp set today. And the other item we're going to be using today are the Moonstone dies by Hunky Dory. This is a new set for this year in our store. I'm not sure if it's new. Does it say? It doesn't say what year it came out, but it's kind of a cool set. It's got stamps and dies that match. And on the back, I'll show you which sentiments are included. So it says Merry Christmas, Jingle All the Way, Festive Wishes, Peace and Joy, Let It Snow, Season's Greetings. And they have all the matching dies. And the cool thing, I don't know if you can see that, but see on the inside of each die, it tells you which die goes with which of the sentiments, which is amazing. I wish every company would do that. It's really awesome. It's kind of hard to read things backwards or know which one goes with which die otherwise, but this company does a great job of that. So I'll grab a link there and I'll pop that into the chat as well for those that might be interested. There we go. We do have a limited supply of them. It is getting to be the end of the season here. So, and closer to Christmas. Who's excited? I'm super excited that we're getting close to Christmas. So I'm going to set those aside. So we're going to make both of these cards today. And what we're going to do is we're going to create these center pieces here, both at the same time. And then we'll assemble the cards at the same time as well. And that's just to allow time to dry in between some of the ink applications. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in just two little pieces of cardstock here. We just have some white cardstock. We are going to need some Distress Oxide ink pads. So we're going to be working with Seedless Preserves. This is Dusty Concord with a few masks on top that I've used in previous classes and things. Faded Jeans. We're going to use a little bit of Chip Sapphire and then just a little bit of Black Soot at the end there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stack these up and set them aside. And we're also going to be using some VersaFine Black. So if you're crafting along or watching the video back, you will need some VersaFine Black. the tree stamp, of course. You'll need a couple of acrylic blocks to put the stamps on top of. And what else do we need? We have a white jelly roll, number 10. You just need one. I just have a backup in case anything goes with the other one. I do have a micron pen as well, and a Sharpie on hand if I need that for anything. And then just some adhesive. So I have some of the just 1/8 inch Suquang Be Creative tape. And we also have some dimensional adhesive. So we're just going to kind of keep those on hand. I also have a paintbrush here, just a little paintbrush, and a little dish of white, you can't really see that, there we go, white gesso, and this time I'm going to use gesso. In the past I've used Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof white, that works really great as well, and a little bit of water, so I have a little bit of water in a paint sprayer here, or a spray bottle. And then just the paintbrush that you choose just needs to have really soft bristles so that that will work well when we're going to splatter the paint on the top of the cards. Okay, so I also have 3 blending brushes, so I'm going to go ahead and these are the ones that I'm using with my oxides, and then this one is for my Distress Black, so black soot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to do the ink blending on the background first. So I'm just going to open up the Seedless Preserves. And for those of you that took our recent Lavinia class with our Lavinia stamps, these are the same colors we used in that class. So if you have the stamp pads from that class, you will be able to use them for these 2 cards too. So what I'm going to do is I'm working on a Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station by Ranger. It's a metal tin metal palette with a grid on it. And when I always start my ink blending, I start on the side so that I'm not starting directly on the paper, and then I pull the ink across. So I'm going to go ahead and add my ink down, and I'm just going to kind of go across the bottom. I'm going to add ink about 1/3 of the way up the card. Just going to pick up the paint or the ink off the palette as we go, because we can use that ink again. And this Make Art Station comes in a couple different sizes. This is the larger one, and it works so fantastic for doing any of the inking techniques that we do in our classes and things, because you can use it as a palette as well. So what I'm going to do this time, we're going to be doing one, let me just show you again. We're going to be doing 1 card portrait and 1 card landscape. So when I'm doing the ink blending, I'm going to make sure that I have 1 card portrait, and I'm going to turn this one and do the same ink blending 1/3 landscape. Let me just see if I can get a little bit better lighting for you. Let's see if that's a bit better. That's a little bit better. We're still struggling. Let's see here. Is that better? No, that's kind of not better there. It works, it seems to be when we're working with white paper and white things, we get the flashback in this particular spot, and I'm not exactly sure how to fix it. We've tried a number of different ways to get the lighting to be correct, and we're just struggling with it. So hopefully we will be able to move to the new recording area soon. So what I've done is I've just added that Seedless Preserves right along the bottom, just about 1/3 of the way up, not all the way, and then just kind of blended that out. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with the I'm going to come in with the Faded Jeans next. Going to set that aside. Use the Faded Jeans, pick up a little bit, and again I'm going to start off of my paper and pull the ink on. So there we go, and I'm just going to go right across the top of that Seedless Preserves, and this time I'm going to go right to the top of the card. So I'm just going to keep adding a little bit more ink as we go. There we go, just ink blending, and I'll add a little bit more on this side, just kind of even that out a little bit. There we go. Add a little bit more to the top. Maybe a little bit more across the middle there. Okay, that's Faded Jeans, and then we're going to bring in a little bit of Chipped Sapphire. Add a little bit of that, and because it's a blue, and it's an oxide, I can use the same brush. So one of the things you don't want to do is use a brush that you've been using on your distress inks in your oxide ink pads. You just get a little bit of contamination. They're different inks, so you want to make sure that you're keeping those brushes separate. And again, I'm just kind of bringing that ink in, and I'll hold this up to the camera in a minute so you can see. So you can see here that the blues look really pretty, but the pinks are a little bit too bright for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my Dusty Concord in, and I'm going to use the same brush. I'm just going to kind of wipe it off on my surface a little bit. Pick up a little bit of the Dusty Concord, and I'm going to go right over top of the seedless preserves that's already there. And what it'll do is it'll let it kind of have that same saturation, but be a little bit less pink, a little bit less, and a little more purple. It'll kind of tone it down just a little bit. Okay. And I might pull this up into the sky just a little bit more to blend those two together. There we go. That's a better blend. So I'm just going to kind of move this around. I'm just kind of adding the ink as we go. Just blending that out. That's good. And then I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to do the same thing with this other one here. So I'm going to start with the Faded Jeans again. Let me close that one up. Faded Jeans, I've switched back to my blue brush. Just going to pick up some of that ink. Again, starting off the side, bringing it onto the card. And I'm kind of blending it right into that Seedless Preserves where that ended. So, and the other thing that you want to be careful of, I'm right-handed, so I tend to pull the ink onto the card from the right all the time, which means this side is naturally going to be darker than the other side. So I'm just going to be conscious of that. This time I'm going to pull the ink on from the other side to kind of even that out a little bit. Blend that down. And then I'm going to take that Faded Jeans all the way to the top of the card. I'm just going to kind of keep working with this. Keep blending it out just a little bit. And the idea isn't to make the whole entire card dark blue. Like, you want a little bit of the white to kind of show through in a few different areas, but you do want it to be mostly like a night sky kind of. So there we go. And then again, I'm going to come back with the Chip Sapphire. Add a little bit more of that. And again, I'm starting off the side. I'm kind of building that into the top corners there to give it a little bit of a darker vignette at the top. I'm pulling that in on the sides. See how I'm leaving the center a little bit open? That's just to kind of mimic a moonlight or something when we're finished doing our blending and stamping. So I'm just going to keep working with this for a minute, and people will ask, like, when do you know when to stop? And really, it's just your instincts will say, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. So this one is still looking very pink along the bottom. So I'm just going to load some more of that Dusty Concord, and I'm going to like mellow that color out just a little bit. I'm going to pull that purple into the sky just a little bit more. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work with the black soot just a little bit. This goes super quick. So the black soot, we want to be really mindful that a little goes a very long way. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. This one is a Distress. You could use a Distress Oxide as well. I just didn't have it here, so I'm going to use the Distress. I'm just going to barely pick up any color, just a tiny little bit. I'm going to work most of that off onto my work surface, and then I'm going to pull that color onto the card that we're working with, and it's just to give it a little bit of a vignette around the edges. We want that to be a little darker, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit more. Work that into the edges. There we go. Well, I hope everyone that's watching is having a wonderful beginning of your holiday season. I can't believe it's December already. It seems to be, this year went by super fast. So I hope you've all had a wonderful year and that you have a wonderful end to your year as well. So again, I'm just pulling that black color onto the card, and I'm just kind of creating a vignette around where we're going to stamp. So we can always come back in after we're finished stamping if we need a little bit more. This time I'm just going to pull this color. I'm picking up the color off the brush and I'm pushing it onto the edge of the card just to kind of cover that white edge. There we go. I'm going to go up to where there's a little bit more and pull that color onto the edge of the card. There we go. And then I'm going to set that one aside. That looks pretty good for a vignette. And I'm going to bring in this one and we'll do the same thing. So add a little bit of color. Well, that one was a little deep, so I'm going to be gentle with that. There we go. And we can be a little more heavy-handed in the corners just because a natural vignette ends up a little heavier in the corner. Just picking up some of that color now and pulling it onto the little card. Up a little more. And one of the things to be mindful of, like when I'm doing my ink blending, you'll notice that I'm reinforcing the head of the brush. I'm holding on to the brush. I'm not holding on to the brush back here because what happens is these are really flexible. And as I put pressure, it will allow that to bend. And I want to keep it flat so that the bristles are doing all the work. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that my hand is level with the tabletop, like horizontally, and I'm holding on to the brush head and using the brush that way. Everybody finds their own way to use the brushes, but I find that lots of times people will use just the tip. They'll have their hand lifted and they'll use just the tip. And then you'll get lots of like little round markings in your artwork. And you won't, like most won't understand why. And it's because your hand is tipped up. So if you bring your hand flat, so your wrist is almost resting on the table or the surface you're working on, it will help with those brush marks. You won't get as many of those brush marks. So just keep working with this black a little bit more. There we go. And then I'm just going to turn this all the way upside down and work on the bottom here. Again, just brushing off most of the ink onto the palette and then pulling that color onto the card at the bottom. Well, it's the top when it's upside down, but it's the bottom when we go to stamp. So there we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. There's a little bit of brush marking. I want to just kind of blend that out a little bit. There we go. And we can always come back in a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to put the lid on those. I'm going to set those brushes aside for a moment. And what I am going to do, because I've been hanging on to the card, I'm just going to wipe my hands with my rag here just to make sure that any ink doesn't transfer to the white cards as I'm working. Usually I would wash my hands, but the sink is in the other room, so we're going to make do with what we have here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these two aside. I'm going to use my little spray bottle here and just wet the surface there and wipe up any of this ink to make sure that that doesn't transfer. There we go. That's good. Okay, then we can bring these back in. Now we're ready to stamp, so we're going to be using the VersaFine pigment ink. This is the Onyx Black. This is an older version that has a swing hinge on it. They don't come like this anymore. We do have the new version, but I tend to work with this one in my studio just because it's the one that I've always used and it's still working just great. I'm also going to bring in the stamps, and as you know, they come on a sheet of acetate that's printed. I'm just going to set the packaging aside. And for this one, we're going to work with, I'm just going to peel this off so that you can see how they work. So they come on 2 pieces of acetate. You just peel them off. We're going to set this piece aside. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use the larger of the trees this time. So, I can set the rest of these aside. And then what we're going to do is instead of putting my stamp right onto the block like this, I'm actually just going to set it down on my surface. And I'm going to just use my block to pick it up. I just find that they stay a little flatter and work a little better if they are put onto the block that way. Sometimes if you lay them directly on the block, you can get a bubble underneath, or you can have it slide around a little bit. So I tend to, excuse me, I tend to lay the stamp down first and then pick it up with the acrylic block. Okay, Okay, so what I'm going to do is rather than pushing my stamp into the ink, I'm going to do it the opposite way. I'm going to tap the ink onto the stamp here. And the reason for that is I don't want the ink to bleed in between all the cracks and crevices of the tree. So I'm just going to tap, tap. And once I've got that saturated, I'm going to make sure that's really covered in ink. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull in these so we can see where we stamped those the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the first one, and I'm watching the tip of the stamp here and the edge so to see that I've got it straight. And then what I'm going to do is set that down. I can almost see the ink transfer to the card underneath. Just going to give that a second to transfer, and then I'm going to lift this up. See how the page came up with it? I'm not going to grab it and peel it off. I just either wait for it to fall like that, or I can just run my finger along the edge and it'll drop off. And that's a little bit easier way to not have it smudge the ink that we've just stamped. So now you can see here, these ones I'm not stamping quite as high, so I don't have to add ink all the way to the bottom. So I'm just going to add ink to the top of the stamp. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp the next one over here on this side to give us a bit of a guide of where we're going to stamp the other two. There we go. I'm just going to stamp that down. There we go. And then we can do the other two. So again, I'm just going to stamp a little bit at the top of the tree. I'm going to go right over top of the one that's on the left side, just a little bit shorter. And then we have one more. Oops, I want to drop the stamp pad. There we go. We have one more. And this time I'm going to make it a little bit lower just so that there's a little bit of variation there. Okay, so that one's stamped. We're going to go ahead and set that one aside, and we'll bring this one in and we'll stamp the horizontal card. So again, I always like to work off of the original so that I can kind of mimic what the placement of the stamp was. Maybe if we move that to there, we can pull this one in so you can see. There we go. So I'm just going to start with a clean stamp. So make sure that I'm cleaning my acrylic block as well. And I'm just going to wipe that ink off of the stamp. Set the rag aside. And again, I'm just going to pick up my acrylic block, stamp the whole, add ink to the whole thing. When I'm happy, I'm going to go ahead and do this big tree here first. I'm making sure that I'm going to add just a little bit more to this tree, the stump, the trunk, to make sure that I did get ink on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm watching where I'm placing the trunk compared to here. So just going ahead and stamping that one. This one has a lot of ink to transfer, so I'm just going to give it a second to transfer that ink to the paper. Just a little bit of pressure, and then when I lift this up, this will come with it. Now I can just touch it with my finger. Did you see how I just knocked that down? That works a little bit better than trying to reach under and peel it off. Sometimes you can have things smudge or things like that instead of just having it fall away naturally. There we go. I'm going to stamp this side one next. So I am going to stamp most of this because I want to make sure that I'm getting the right side. But when I line this up this time, I'm going to be looking at the trunk and I'm going to line that up with the edge of the card. So, and I'm going to make sure that the trunk of the tree is close to the bottom. So we want it to be just to the inside, and then go ahead and stamp that down. And then go ahead and I can again just touch that and it will fall away. And I'll clean up my work surface here before we continue, just to make sure that doesn't transfer. And I'm just using to clean, I'm just using, this is just a microfiber, it's like a mechanics cloth. You can get like dedicated chamois and things for cleaning your stamps. I just find that that works just as nicely. So yeah, so I use that. These next two, you can see they're much shorter than the others. So again, I only need to stamp the top of the tree, and then I can line that up. I'm going to give it just a little bit more. When I looked through, I could tell that I didn't get quite low enough. There we go. So this time I'm going to go just a little bit off center. Stamp that one down. Again, lift that up. And then we've got one more to go. Add a little bit more. This tree is quite unique, and you'll see in a minute how we're going to add the snow. And the way that it's designed, it was pretty brilliant of them to think ahead for a snowy tree. There we go. Okay, so that's all the stamping we need to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up my stamp here. And then I'm just going to give that a second to dry while we clean up this work surface. I can set that aside. Clean that up. Make sure those are to the side. There we go. That's great, and I'll put my stamp back too. Better close my ink pad before I put my fingers in it, because that's a known thing to happen. So there we go. When we're finished with our stamp, we can just bring our acetate pieces back in, and we just put the stamp back on there. This little stamp set has some unique little other little stamps with it. I'll bring the backing back in so you can see. So it's got some beautiful little snowflakes. It has little stars. If you wanted to decorate your tree, if you were doing it in a different context that wasn't silhouette, you could use the little stars and snowflakes. There's even a little flower pot, which is very cute, and a little bow, which is very fun as well. So it's a nice little set to have in your stash to create some pretty fun holiday cards. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in my white gel pen, and I'm just using a bold number 10. And notice the end is a little bit, kind of has a little dried ink on there. I'm just going to pull that off with my fingers, wipe that onto my little cloth here. And then I'm just going to flip this over just to make sure that the ink is flowing, and it is, so that's good. So when I do the adding the snow, we're going to use this to add the snow to the tops of the trees. And what we're going to do is when the snow falls, it always lands on the top edge. So we're only going to be putting the snow markings on the top edges of all the branches. And this tree stamp was created, and when I do that, I'm going to be really sketchy about it. I don't want to draw the line. I'm just kind of touching the ball of the pen down and kind of wiggling my hand to give it kind of the effect of snow. I just have to put my glasses on so I can see. There we go. And then these stamps, see how they have, I'm going to show you up closer here. See how they have these interesting little blobs that you can see the sky through? We're going to color all of those little blobs in with the white gel pen. And when you're finished, it will look like the snow is just resting on the branches. So you can see as I kind of come along here, and it's very quick to do. It doesn't take much time. I'm just going to add a little bit more. Sometimes I'm just dotting my pen up and down on the branches as well. So, but I'm just going to fill in wherever there's those little blotches that you can see the sky behind. You can leave some of them open as well, and it would be kind of like when you're looking through the trees. So I'm just going to go ahead, keep coloring these in. And then when you get to the bottom, we have to kind of imagine where this branch would kind of disappear behind the other tree. And it will help us to have that kind of fill in just a little bit. At the bottom here, you just get a little scribbly. That's good. And then I'll move to the next tree. And again, just kind of dropping in some ink on the tops of the branches and then filling in all those little. And I'm doing this quite quickly because I don't want you to have to sit for too long watching me color all of these in. But we do have to do them before we add our paint splatter for the snowflakes. So I'm just going to kind of be... this is, for those of us that have a handshake or dexterity issues with our hands, this is a fantastic card to make because all the little hiccups and things that happen when our hands shake, they are part of the card. It just makes it look a little bit more natural. So you can tell I'm just kind of wiggling my pen across the trees. And yeah, just adding a little bit of white. One of the tips I can share with you about gel pens, some people always have a question about their pens if they stop working. what can happen is these are a ballpoint pen. So there's a little steel ball in the tip here that rolls when you push it against the paper. And what happens is the ink comes down the barrel around the ball and then gets transferred to the paper as you're moving your pen. So when you're working with things like watercolor paper or things that have a little bit of fiber to them, or even things like this where we're coloring onto ink blended backgrounds and things like that, what can happen is as this little ball spins in the pen, it's picking up fiber or picking up ink, and it's actually making the little ball in there dirty. So it's like it's picking it up and it's getting stuck between the pen nib and the little ball that's rolling inside. So what you can do to clean that and give it a try to see if you can bring your pen back to life, what you can do is just boil a little bit of water and put some water in a dish, maybe when you're having a cup of tea in the morning, and just kind of, you'll have a little dish of water. You just hold your pen tip into the dish for about 30 seconds and then just give it a little rub, like scribble off on a piece of paper. Do it again and rub it off again. And what will happen is it loosens up any of the dirt that's keeping the ball from rolling, and it will let you be able to use your pen again. Maybe get a little bit of extra life out of it. So hopefully that will help some of you. They're great little white pens. This is one of my favorite pens on the market for white. It is a ballpoint pen. So over time, it of course will pick up inks and fibers from the papers that we use it on. So knowing how to clean them will get a little bit more life out of your pen for you. So it works with the sparkle pens too. So some of the gel pens that are sparkly, how they sparkle is they have a little bit of mica in the pen. So again, as you're using it, it can get clogged with some of that mica. So just being able to kind of figure out a way to get the little ball to keep moving again, that will get the ink in the barrel going. And sometimes they just work so well that the ink, right now you can tell this pen's pretty new because the ink is all the way up to here. But when it gets down to here, it can sometimes not work as well either. And it's just the life of the pen has kind of reached its max. So yeah, so there we go. So I'm just about finished with this one here, and you can see now, I'll show you the difference. So there, I've just kind of done little scribbly things to add the snow in, and you can see how it makes your winter scene look a little bit more snowy. So whoever designed that stamp did an incredible job guiding us on where we should add some of the snow. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the other one as well. I'll try to be as quick as I can so that you're not having to kind of watch for too long. This one's will go a little quicker because they overlap a little bit more. But if we are going to complete all of the cards, we need to add the splatter. And the paint splatter is easier to do when you have both of them done, just so that I'm not making a mess twice to have to clean it up, because the paint splattering effect, you want to make sure that I'm working here where my computer is right in front of me here. I have a camera above me up here where you're watching from, and I also have a keyboard and like computer equipment and all the things. So when we go to do the splatter, I'm going to make sure that I cover that up so that it doesn't get away from us. The thing is we're using a water-based paint this time, which is also why I chose to use gesso, so that I can clean it up easily. There we go. I'm just still working my way through here. You can see at the bottom there's a little bit more snow. Almost looks like makes it look like a tree sitting on a mound there. It's kind of cool. There we go. We're about halfway. Yeah, these little crevices and cracks and things that they've designed into the stamp are really, they just work really well for us to learn where to put the snow. So, and if you were doing this, if you stamp this onto white paper, you may not have to fill it all in. I would still add the snow to the treetops and down the sides of the branches and things, just because that's the way snow falls. It lands on the tops of the branches. So again, we're just adding a little bit of, and I'm not being, like I said, I'm not being too super fussy. I'm just letting the pen do the work, and I'm letting my handshake take over so that it will just kind of add a little bit of natural natural snow. And wherever it looks like, see, I don't know if you can see it, but right there it looks a little bit too drawn. It looks like a drawn. I'm just going to go in and tap my pen over top of that and just kind of blend it together. And that will make it look a little bit looser instead of being it so drawn on. Here we go. Just again, going to go in and add a little bit more. Just about done to the sides here. Yeah, we haven't had any snow yet. I'm not sure if where you are, if it's already started to snow, but it's frozen here a couple times overnight, but we haven't had any snow quite yet in our season. I have a feeling, though, we usually get our snows in January and February, so I have a feeling it's going to be fairly cool this winter in those months. So, but we'll see. We'll hope for more sun. I don't mind if it gets cold, but the snow is a little bit, a little scary for those of us with mobility challenges. It's a little bit hard to move around in the frozen weather. So hopefully that will not last very long, and we're lucky that our town and city takes care of it pretty quickly for us. So there we go. So there's the snow. We've added the snow to both of these cards now. So it looks pretty amazing how quickly a little bit of white pen can do some amazing work. Okay, so what I'm going to do, like I mentioned, I'm where my computer is. So I just have a couple sheets of blue cardstock. I'm just going to go ahead and put these up here so that I'm protecting my equipment, because I'm going to, and make sure that you do protect your equipment as well when you're going to do some splattering work. We would hate for you to have some paint markings on all of your equipment. So I just took a cloth and covered the microphone over here too. So, and then what I've done is I have just a little container of, it's just a acrylic container that has a little bit of gesso. So I'm just using the Dina Wakley Media white gesso. So you can use acrylic paint as well, or we have a product called Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and that's usually what I use. But because of my computer equipment, I want to be able to wipe it down and things have it clean up pretty easy. So in here, this is already pretty wet. But what I'm going to do is just give it a little spritz of water, and then just take my paintbrush. You'll notice that I have a paintbrush that's very, very soft and like it's just a little cheapy paintbrush, but it's got like very kind of, I don't know how to describe that. The bristles are very like soft and they move quite well. This is a great brush for splattering. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix that water in and make sure that I have my paintbrush loaded really well with the paint here. And then I'm going to just kind of hold this back and I'm going to just tap. So if I'm really high, you'll see it. I'm just going to see where it's landing. There we go. I can see where I have to adjust my hand. You can see the paint kind of coming down to the card. And the higher I go, the smaller the splatter will be. But the closer I go, the larger it will be. And if I'm not getting enough splatter, the other thing you can do too is use another brush and just, there we go, that'll get it a little bit better for the splattering. You can kind of move that around. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit more and move to the second card here. Just keep moving around. I wish we had better lighting so you could see. This is one of the most fun parts of making these types of cards. And yeah, I'm just going to add just a tiny bit more. And like I say, if I go up a little bit, it's going to add some smaller ones. There we go. There we go. That was the one that was missing, and maybe right on the edge there. Perfect. Good. And then I just have to the side here, I just have a dish of water. So I'm just going to rinse my brush right away so that I make sure that that is not going to wreck the brush. So I'm just washing the paintbrush off. And then personally, I just kind of wipe my fingers along the edge to take the water off, and then we want to set it horizontal to dry. You don't want to set your brushes upright to dry because the water will travel back in the head and loosen the bristles. So you just want it to set horizontally to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then because we're finished with the splatter, I can take down my little cloth here and my couple of pieces of paper. I'll set those behind me. I'm just going to kind of pick these up and set them to the side for a second. I'm just picking them up by the edges because this gesso takes a few minutes to dry. So I'm just going to set them there. And then again, I'm just going to kind of spray this down and wipe this up right away so that this paint doesn't have time to dry and be too permanent. Well, and that went seamlessly. I was a little nervous about doing the splattering in front of the computer and having it, black and white polka dot monitor. Anyone? Yeah, but it worked out pretty good. It is drying pretty quick though, and it is water-based, but it just needs to be activated. So I'm just going to add a little bit more here to make sure that that's nice and clean. Not going to transfer to anything else. There we go. I think that's pretty good. And that's giving those cards an extra minute to dry there too. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave these. Again, I'm just going to put them out of the scene just for a minute so they can dry while we go ahead and put some of our bases together. So for this I think it's 5.5. How big is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5 to the outside. So I've just cut the pieces already for us. So we're just going to put those together. And what we can do is we're just going to add there, sorry for the glare. We're going to add that mirror card to the black. And then we can add this to there. Just going to go on like that. And this will go on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and tape all of those down. And I'll show you how I do that so that we can do the reveal very easily. So just using, again, the double-sided tape. And when I go to add these, what I'm going to do is just pull those to the tape. Not going to pull them off all the way. Pull the tape to the outside. And then again, pull the tape to the outside. And then when I go ahead and do the mirror card, we can line this up. See how it will just sit up like that? It lets us move it around. So I can, and I apologize if I put my head in the camera, but I need to be able to see where we're at here. There we go. So, and what we're going to do is once we have that fairly straight, we can just touch that down. And by doing that, we can see if we have to take it off, we only have to take that little bit. See how this one I'm a little bit off? So now I don't have to pull all of that off. I can just adjust it and then re-stick that down. There we go. So, and then I can go ahead and remove that and remove this one. And that's good to go. And I notice that this one is just a little bit, it has a little bit of more black on this side. So I'm just going to pull in my trimmer. I'm just going to trim that down just a little bit to make it a little more cohesive. There we go. So that one's good. We're just going to set that aside, and then we'll go ahead and add these. We're going to do it the same way. So we will add tape to the corner, tape there and here, and then again burnish that down with my hand. And oops, there we go. Just tip those to the outside, and this one as well. And then this time I'm going to remove that white one from the inside so I can see where I'm putting that. Just making sure that that stays to the outside, and the other one does as well. And then I'm just watching the three sides to try to get that border equal, symmetrical all the way around. When I'm happy, I just tack the corners. What will happen, I can just now go back in and pull those off. So that's great. And then we have one more. This one I'm just going to do a dry fit to make sure it fits. It goes on the inside. And that's so that when we're working with a black card base, it is, we have, if you wanted to stamp this, you could stamp this first, but also so that you can, if you wanted to write in your card, you can see the writing, because on black it's harder to see. So yeah, so we'll just make sure that we add, and it also serves another purpose too. It because we're using just 65-pound black and white cardstock for this project. This will reinforce it and allow it to stand up a little better too, once it has a little bit of weight on the front. So there you go. Let's see how we're doing there. Good. We can go ahead and pull those out. There we go. So we're all ready for, there's the base. And then this one, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open this up. So on the bottom here, you'll notice it says Season's Greetings. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that now because we're going to pop this up. So if I was to stamp it afterwards, then I have to work this little block around that popped up piece. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside. I am going to pull in this the piece that we made here just so we can see about where it's going to sit. And then I'll know approximately where we need to put our sentiments. So let me just grab that. So we are going to use Season's Greetings on this one. And so I'll just set that aside there. And again, I'm not going to stick this directly on the block. I'm going to flip it over, set it down, and this block has a little bit of a grid on it so I can tell when it's being picked up appropriately. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in a piece of, not mirror cardstock, just a piece of scrap here. Let me just find a piece of scrap paper. Oh goodness, oh, that's a card front, sorry. Oh, and that's masking. Let's see. There's got to be a piece of scrap in here somewhere. Goodness. Okay, well, we'll just use that. That's good. So I'm just going to bring that in. And the reason for that is because we only have one kind of go with it, with this stamp. So I'm going to practice a couple times first. So I'm going to flip my block over and I'm going to tap this. And then see how I have a little bit of ink on the edges of my block. I'm going to make sure I wipe that off, and I have some on my thumb. Get that clean too. And then when I stamp this down, I'm just practicing. So I'm just going to stamp it with enough room to die cut around it because this stamp set has dies with it as well. So, and there we go. That's stamped pretty nicely the first time. So if I wanted to try one more time, just to make sure I'm getting a consistent stamp, there we go. That's pretty good too. Okay, then I can go ahead and kind of stamp where we're going to go with this one now. So I'm just loading up some ink onto the stamp. Putting a little bit more on the edge there. And then I'm going to use my hands to anchor, line this up a little bit, and then just go ahead and stamp that down. I'm going to give it a second to transfer and then go straight up. So that's great. So that's ready to go. I can set aside my ink pad now and go ahead and clean off my stamp. There we go. And then this should be okay now to, it looks like it's dry enough. This should be okay to stick together. So I'm going to go ahead and add more tape to the back of this piece. And then when we add the main piece to the card, we're actually going to pop it up. We're going to use some dimensional adhesive, pop dots, foam tape, whatever you like, whatever you have on hand. And we'll put that so that it sits a little more dimensional. So again, I'm just using the tape to help me out here. And I apologize again if I get my head into there. Just trying to make sure I get it straight. Once I'm happy with the placement, I just tack the corners. That holds it for me. And then I can just go in and remove those. Perfect. So that's going to sit like that on the card. And we're going to go ahead and add some dimensional adhesive. So I can just flip this over. It's pretty quick and easy. When you have a good stamp and some really nice ink pads to work with, Ranger does a great job. The oxides are super popular. Oxide inks and their distress inks are great too. But yeah, makes it easy to make a quick card or two at the last minute. Sometimes I get caught where I need a super quick card and they look like you spent hours making them, but they only take a few minutes to put together. So yeah, so I'm just going to remove the backings here. And then these adhesive squares are amazing. They're 3L, they're the Scrapbook Adhesives brand. But one of the things I always like to do if I want, especially on handmade pieces, is I always add just a little dot of adhesive to the back just to give it a little bit of reinforcement so that we're sure that things are not going to fall off. Okay, so then I'm just going to go ahead and find my placement here. I'm going to do the best I can to get it straight on all the sides. And then when I'm happy, I'm just going to let that fall into place. There we go. And there's our first card complete. That was pretty easy, hey? Now we'll just go ahead and set that one aside for a moment. And I'll grab the pieces for the second card. And again, I'm going to peel this one off because we used the season's greetings on the first card. Put that back onto there. And this time we're going to use Merry Christmas. So we'll go ahead and take that one off. Again, I'm going to load it onto my block. I'm just going to lay that straight. Use the grid to help me line that up. Perfect. So that's ready to go. And then I'm going to go ahead and put these together. So you notice on here that we have a little bit of fuzz on the edge here. I'm just going to use a sanding block. So I just have a block of like sanding block here. And I always put it on an angle and I hold it down with my thumb. And I'm just going to drag that along the back. And what that will do is it takes all those little hairs off. Makes that a little bit nicer edge. So yeah. So if you have a sanding block, it's a great tool. I use it almost every time I craft, especially as my blades get a little bit older. I tend to get those little fuzzy edges, and paper seems to need a haircut a little more often when our blades are getting to the time that we need to renew them or change them out. Oh goodness, there we go. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and add this to the background, try to get the reveal the same. So bear with me here as I add that. It's not too bad. There we go. Tack the corners, peel out the edges. There we go. How'd we do? Not too bad. Again, a little bit over, so I'm going to put a little bit more on one side than the other. So I'm just going to take a little smidge off that edge. That's a bit better. That's a bit better. I'm going to set that aside because we are going to stamp again before we add the dimensional or have to work around the dimensional adhesive. So this one here fits nicely, so we can go ahead and add that. Just add a little bit of tape here and to that piece. You could go all the way around if you chose to, but I find that just the top and bottom, or this, or doing just the sides is enough adhesive too. So it depends on how you create and what you like to do. I'm just going to take that out of the middle there, close this up. And this is just a regular size A2, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 is the size of the black. And there we go. So once we're happy with that reveal, we just touch down the corners and again pull those out. That's great. And then I'm going to open this up, add this piece to the middle. I'm just going to do a fit first to see where it's going to fit. See if that one needs to be trimmed. And that one is looking a little bit tight. So let me just see here. Yeah, I think that needs just a tiny bit of a trim. So yeah, it does need a little bit of a trim. So that's why. Should be like 4, and then this way should be 5 1/4. It's just a tiny bit larger. Yeah, there we go. That's a bit better. That's better. Okay, so then we can set aside those. Pick up the tape again. And I'm going to go this way, a little bit easier. Oh, this wants to stay curled. There we go. And again here. It's perfect. Burnish that down. Again, I'm just going to, and that one actually is torn there, so I'm going to make sure I go a little bit past that, or it will be harder to get it out from underneath once we set it in place. So I'm just going to watch the edges here, get the reveal about the same. There's a little piece of adhesive hanging over the back here. So I'm just going to peel the backing. I'm going to roll that back. There we go. Make sure that doesn't overhang. Try and keep it in the frame for everyone. And not be too far outside the frame. Oops. There we go. Tack that down. We can pull this one and that one. There we go. We'll close that up, and now we'll bring in our piece here. We know that it's going to go on top of here, right? Just like that. And then it's going to sit there. So we're just going to kind of put that in place. Whoops. Put that in place. What is that? There we go. Just put this in place, and then that will give me the placement. I changed this one up a little bit. You'll notice when I bring in the other cards to show you. The first one that I created, I was trying to do it as a band down. I didn't like it as much, so I'll show you when I pull the other cards in what I mean by that. So this one, I want to do a kind of a check. That's going to kind of go right in the middle there. So that's good. I just want to make sure I leave enough room that it's not going to get in the way. The card won't get in the way. Again, tap, tap, tap. I'm going to bring in my practice one here to see how this stamp goes. And I've got some ink on the edges, so I'm just grabbing the little rag here. There we go. And I can actually see that I don't have enough ink on the stamp there. So there we go. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that down, see how that goes. And that's not so bad. That's good. So I'm just going to go ahead and load my stamp up again. And I do a little bit on the edge, so I'm just going to wipe that off. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm using my hands again as the anchor. My little pinky fingers are guiding the rest of my hands. And then when I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to go ahead and hold that down for a moment and give it a moment for the ink to transfer, and then lift straight up. And that's great. So we can go ahead and wipe that off. Set that aside. I'm going to close up my stamp pad here. And set that aside. Oops. And then we can go ahead. These ones here, these ones that were my test ones, they actually stamped pretty good. So I'm going to save those because the dies here, we'll be able to cut them out and we'll be able to use them in another project. So I will set that aside. And I'm going to move this up, just up a little bit so it can dry while we're putting this together. Flip this piece over. There we go. Oh. And that one. There we go. So here, because that broke, I am going to take that whole side off, or else it will be very hard to get that little edge. I need to burnish that down a little bit more. Get that little edge off. There we go. Perfect. This time I'm going to be careful with the placement, so I apologize if I get my head in the frame again, but I need to make sure that I put this in the right spot the first time. There we go. That looks pretty good. And then again, we're going to add some dimensional adhesive to the back. So you could use the larger ones as well. You'll notice that I have little bits and pieces. All of these that are cut up like this, we've used them in classes, things like that. So they kind of get lost if we don't use them up. So yeah, so I'm just going to use up some of those, push these down, and then I'll go ahead and remove the backing. We're almost done here. Thanks for hanging out with me today and creating. Hopefully you're creating along, and if you are inspired to try giving it a try and making some of your own silhouette stamped Christmas cards, I'd love to see them. Please email me or text them to the store phone number. Or you could put them in the Scrapbook Garage Creative Community Facebook page as well. We would love to see them there. So that was pretty good. Let me just see, that was a little bit, I'm going to see if I can get that up pretty quickly because it's a little off. So I'm just going to twist that. And I did notice this time, actually I'm going to take it all the way off because I didn't add my glue to the back. So that was a benefit there too. So there we go. And I'm going to be careful this time, be a little more mindful of where this is going to go. So I apologize. I'm going to try to come in beside the camera instead of in front of it. There we go. Okay, well, that looks pretty good. There we go. So we've got, there's the two that we created together. And I'll bring in the first few. I'll show you what I mean by the difference. So see the difference between this one here and this one, right? I don't know. I was on the fence about whether I like the bands on the sides or not. So, or if I like it more like a regular A2 card with a regular card size. But both of them are very pretty. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. There's the 4 that we've created together. And yeah, I hope you give it a try. I'm going to pop back to the front-facing camera here. There we go. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Let me turn my light back on here. There we go. Good. Well, I hope you had fun and learned some tips and tricks for when you're ink blending and working with silhouette stamps. There's some amazing trees out there, and they can create some pretty incredible cards with your talent and your help. So I hope you make some. If you do, please share, and we'd love to see them. So I hope you have a great week, and thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. I'm glad you enjoyed them. That's great. They're really fun to put together, and they come together pretty quickly. When you need a last-minute card, it's my go-to. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them as well. And join us again next week. I hope you have a fantastic week. And yeah, we'll see you next week right here, Tuesday at 2. Okay, have a great week. Bye, everyone. Bye.